L- Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Congressional Briefing on Vietnam Human Rights Act. My name is Kung Nguyen. I'm a member of the Buddhist Youth Organizational Leadership Council.
My name is Quỳnh Phang, member of the Buddhist Youth Organization National Leadership Council.
We will be the moderator for the program today. Welcome to all of you. Here is the agenda for the day. Welcome remark by Dr. Quỳnh Lam Ngo, introductions of guests by Dr. Vinh Nguyen, a memorial of the most venerable Thích Quảng Độ, testimony from various religious leaders. We have followed by remark from member of U.S. Congress and representative from U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. Follow that will be a panel discussion facilitated by Ms. Linh Nguyen. And we encourage attendees to enter your questions in the chat room, and we will address them during the panel discussion. Follow that will be a closing remark by Mr. Wook Phang, Secretary General, BYO National Leadership Council, and then our session will adjourn then.
Now to begin, we would like to invite Dr. Quỳnh Lam Ngo, Acting Chair, Buddhist Youth Organization, National Leadership Council, to give the welcome remarks. Please welcome Dr. Ngo.
Thank you, Quỳnh. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today for this congressional briefing on Vietnam Human Rights Act. We members and representatives of the Buddhist Youth Organization are greatly honored to have your presence and participation in today's briefing. We are an educational organization founded in 1951 in Vietnam with the goals to educate youth from age 7 to 18 to become good citizens based on the Buddha teachings. The leaders in our organization had gone through training and learned Buddhism extensively. As we all know, the current Vietnamese authorities show very little effort to improve human rights and many other basic freedoms for its people. Vietnam remains one of the few countries that would not allow democracy for its people, which impedes peace globally and particularly in the Southeast Asia region. Today, we have testimonies from various oppressed groups who will speak up about the many violations of basic human rights, particularly freedom of religion or belief. The current Vietnamese regime also prohibits the freedom of expression, the right to assemble, the right to own properties, the right for legal protection under the laws, and many more, all of which together make freedom of religion or belief possible. Whereas human rights are the essence of governance, without human rights, there is no political legitimacy for the ruling Vietnam Communist Party. We have invited many U.S. senators and representatives and other agencies to give us an in-depth view of a bill for human rights for Vietnam, currently in the House and possibly in the Senate. We need to have such a bill to become law, a legal framework to improve human rights and democracy in Vietnam, one of the few countries who is still under the dictatorship of communism. More than an act of compassion for the Vietnamese people, the pursuit of human rights for Vietnam is closely connected to the peace and security of the region. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome all of you.
Thank you, Dr. Ngo, for your welcome remarks. Next, we turn over to Dr. Vinh Nguyen, Assistant Secretary General, BYO National Leadership Council, who will present the guests and officials who are joining today's briefing. Welcome, Dr. Nguyen.
Ladies and gentlemen, my great honor to introduce the following organization, official, and media participating in this essential congressional briefing on Vietnam Human Rights Act. We would like to welcome the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam, Sangha of the Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam, Representative Committee of the popular blog of Cao Church, Buddhist Church of America, Vietnam Human Rights Day Organization, Minh Van Foundation, Vietnam Democracy Center, Alliance for Independence and Democracy of Vietnam, Vietnamese American for Human Rights, League of Vietnamese American Voters, ADVN, Antelope Valley Vietnamese Association, United Council of Vietnamese Homeland and Overseas, Vietnam Human Rights Network, Vietnamese American Community of Tacoma, Peace, South Vietnamese Veteran Association of Washington, PPSOS, Federation of Vietnamese American Community of the USA, Block 8406 International, Long Tho Thiên Ton Temple, United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, Vietnamese Association of Houston and vicinity, the Catholic University of America, Buddhist Solidarity Association, Vietnamese American Community of USA, Vietnamese American Republican in Georgia, Vietnamese Community of Houston, Club of Free Journalists, Vietnam FORB Roundtable, Jubilee Campaign, Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, Montague's Stand for Justice Overseas, Office of Interfaith Council of Vietnam, Vietnam American Voters Association, Vietnamese American Community of Utah, Spallies and Parcels of and World Peace Protection Section Europe, Buddhist Youth Organization, Office of the Speaker of the House, Office of Congresswoman Stephanie Bice, Office of Congressman Lou Correa, Office of Congresswoman Jennifer Weston, Office of Congresswoman Diana Titus, Office of Congressman Ron Kai, Office of Congressman Michael Guest, Office of Congressman Colin Alfred, Office of Congresswoman Colin Produce, Office of Congressman Steve Cohen, Office of Congressman Jason Mann, Office of Senator Raphael Warnock, Office of Senator Tom Copper, Office of Senator Pat Toomey, Office of Senator Chuck Grassley, Office of Senator Mark Kelly, Office of Senator Rick Scott, Office of Senator Mark Warner, Office of Delegate Michael St. Nicholas, Office of Congresswoman Young Kim, Office of Congressman Christopher Smith, Office of Congressman Alan Lowenthal, and the media, Voice of America, Vietnamese Public Television, SPTN, and Radio Free Asia. So we also have very special guest speakers whose bio will be provided in more detail later on. With that, we thank you all and wish you have a very successful conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. At this point, we would like to a memoriam of the most venerable Thích Quảng Độ. The most venerable Thích Quảng Độ passed away at the age of 92 in Saigon, Vietnam on February 22, 2020. He was the fifth patriarch of the United Buddhist Church of Vietnam, formerly in Vietnamese as Giáo hội Phật giáo Việt Nam Thống nhất. He was a tireless advocate for religious freedom and human rights for Vietnam. He died a prisoner of conscience, having been in prison or detention for more than 40 years. In this briefing, we thought that it is fitting to have a moment of remembrance of our supreme, fearless leader who have fought for religious freedom of Vietnam.
Why are you under house arrest?
Because the communist government here think that if I am free as everybody else, I'll continue my fight for freedom and democracy. That's why they have to put me under house arrest, so that I have no opportunity of meeting many people. Here, if I speak, I have no one to speak with. So we all brought on anyone come to see me. Sometimes the police is there over across the street and come in. So I am isolated. They do not permit me to meet anyone. That's why they have to put me under long arrest. You see, it is easy to understand, but after seeing my master was killed very barbarously, very horribly, and then my mother and my brother of my master, and even my grandfather in religion was also killed by the communists. And so that I see that the communists very, very cruel. And moreover, they follow, they apply totalitarian regimes. People have no right to express their own idea. Even have no human rights, even democracy. They rule over people according to their own will. So I see that the community cannot be let them free to do this forever. We must do something. Because here you see Buddhists, they do not live for their own life, but they always think of the life of the people in general. And as long as the Vietnamese people suffer, we suffer with them. That's why we continue our fight until Vietnam have freedom, democracy, and peace.
After watching that memoriam, let us all be reminded that when we honor the past, there's the guiding lights for our futures. Next would be the testimonials from various religious leaders. We are honored to introduce our first speaker, the Most Venerable Thích Huyền Việt, who is the Vice Chair of the Dharma Institute, the administrative branch of the Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam. He is also the chair of the second office of the Dharma Institute and the president of the Vietnamese American Unified Buddhist Church. Please welcome the Most Venerable Thích Huyền Việt. Chúng con kính mời thầy.
Kính bạch thầy đang mute.
Good morning from Texas. Dear distinguished guests, I would like to thank the Buddhist Youth Organization for holding this very important conference. Also, I would like to welcome my venerable colleagues who will provide testimonies on the lack of religious freedom and human rights in Vietnam. Many of you have endured a lot. Thank you for your courage. I also welcome the honorable senators and representatives. I am especially grateful for Congressman Chris Smith for championing H.R. 3001 Vietnam Human Rights Act, and many of your colleagues from both sides of the aisles who sponsor this bill. On the morning of May 27, 2021, the first day of the important Buddhist summer retreat, uniform police of the Dong Nai provincial authorities came to Balamak Temple to demand that the senior most venerable Thích Nhật Bang report to the provincial authorities office and retract the New Year's letter that he had issued on the occasion of the Lunar New Year. The most venerable Thích Nhật Bang is the president of the Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam, the Dhamma Institute. The administrative branch of the Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam, he himself was a prisoner of the conscience for 17 years. They believe that his wishes for the Lunar New Year's were the counter-revolutionary access to the temple has been retreated. The temple has limited supplies and not been allowed to repair for years. On December 5th, 2020, Dong Nai's provincial authorities and its police prevented the most venerable Thích Nhật Bang from leaving for where to preside over the annual Great Prayers ceremony. As there was no isolation order, this was the infringement on the freedom of religion and his rights. After 3 hours of the interrogation, the authorities locked down his Paramita temple and blocked him from leaving. Many Buddhist youth organizations in Thừa Huế province were prohibited by the authorities and attending the same ceremony. The Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam has been disallowed from giving alms to those in need, as it is considered illegal entities by the authorities. Giving alms to the poor and the needy is the important aspect of our religious practice. The Constitution of Vietnam gives a false promise of religious freedom. However, in practice, the regime imposes a range of restrictions restricting religious practice, such as registration requirement, control boards, and surveillance, with the purpose to eradicate non-state sponsored religious organizations and its followers. The current regime tears down much needed multilateral civil society activities and tramples on the human rights. To maintain a sustainable relationship with such totalitarian regime. The U.S. must do all that we can to support the 4 pillars present in the RH 3001 Vietnam Human Rights Act. They were the religious freedom, human rights, civil societies, and the sanctions like global Magnitsky Act for the religious violations. Vietnam should be designated as the country of particular concern. Our work here is the accumulation of the wholesome compassion toward our human family. With the compassion and wisdom of our enlightened path, we can save humanity and our planet. When we have multilateral civil society activities around the world, we can find the solutions toward of how best to save each other and world we live in. Let's start here today with our prayer that our honorable senators and representatives will pass the Vietnam Human Rights Act in law. I respectfully plead to the honorable senators to introduce the Vietnam Human Rights Act in the Senate. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Most Venerable Thất Huyền Việt, for providing this landscape of what's really happening on the ground in Vietnam. Your statement demonstrates there's a need for HR 3001. Chúng con xin cảm ơn Thầy. At this point, I want to introduce the Most Venerable Thất Thiện Minh, who was born in 1955 in Bạc Liêu and was assigned to 2 life sentences in Vietnam by the Vietnamese authority in 1979 and 1986 for fighting for freedom of religion, human rights, democracy, and legal right for the United Buddhist Church of Vietnam. After 26 years of exile, 2 life sentences, and the Most Venerable Thất Thiện Minh is considered one of the longest serving prisoners of conscience in Vietnam. He entered prison at the age of 25 in 1979 and was released at the age of 51 in 2005. We invite the Most Venerable Thất Thiện Minh, founder, Vietnam Political and Religious Prisoner Friendship Association to speak. Chúng con xin mời Hòa Thượng có đôi lời với quan khách.
Dạ, kính bạch Hòa Thượng đang mute ạ. Kính bạch Hòa Thượng mở mic.
Xin kính chào ban điều hành cùng quý đại biểu, quý quan khách tham dự buổi hội thảo vận động dự luật nhân quyền cho Việt Nam. Tôi hoan nghênh và ủng hộ dự luật nhân quyền cho Việt Nam HR 3001 do dân biểu xứ Smith khởi xướng nhằm thúc đẩy Việt Nam tiến bộ hơn về mặt nhân quyền. Thứ hai, tình hình tự do tôn giáo tại Việt Nam vẫn chưa có dấu hiệu tiến bộ. Các tôn giáo độc lập không được tự do hoạt động, chính quyền luôn bám sát, theo dõi, ngăn cấm, trấn áp hay cô lập hoặc phân hóa nội bộ Giáo hội Phật giáo Việt Nam Thống Nhất. Cô lập Đức Tăng Thống, trưởng lão Hòa Thượng Thích Quảng Độ suốt mấy mươi năm cho đến ngày Đức Tăng Thống viên tịch. Ngày 22 tháng 2 năm 2020, Đức Tăng Thống trưởng lão Hòa Thượng Thích Quảng Độ viên tịch, thân xác Ngài cũng không yên. Bằng chứng vào ngày này, chính quyền thành phố đến tận chùa Từ Hiếu gây khó khăn không cho treo băng rôn với nội dung lễ tang Đức Đệ Ngũ Tăng Thống trưởng lão Hòa Thượng Thích Quảng Độ Giáo hội Phật giáo Việt Nam Thống nhất. Và trong những ngày lễ tang, nhiều công an trà trộn, quay phim, ghi hình, theo dõi, thậm chí họ còn cho cài đinh dưới bánh xe chở quan tài Đức Tăng Thống và các xe hoa đưa tang. Ngay cả lúc quả thiêu cũng bị công an gây khó khăn về thủ tục hành chính, làm cản trở thời gian tại đài hóa thân. Và công an còn kích động những người thân ruột thịt của Đức Tăng Thống từ miền Bắc vào Nam đưa yêu sách đòi nhận hài cốt Đức Tăng Thống mang về miền Bắc, vân vân, làm trái ngược đi truyền thống lễ nghi bao đời đối với vị lãnh đạo tinh thần tối cao của Giáo hội Phật giáo Việt Nam Thống nhất. Hiện nay, nhà cầm quyền Việt Nam vẫn còn giam giữ nhiều tín đồ tôn giáo, chẳng hạn Phật giáo Hòa Hảo như luật sư, doanh nhân Nguyễn Bắc Chuyển, án 11 năm, giam tại trại giam An Điềm, tỉnh Quảng Nam; Vương Văn Thả, án 12 năm; Vương Văn Thuận, án 7 năm; Nguyễn Văn Thượng, án 6 năm, giam tại trại giam Xuân Lộc, Đồng Nai; Nguyễn Nhật Trường, án 6 năm, giam tại Xuyên Mộc, Bà Rịa, Vũng Tàu. Cơn đại dịch SARS-CoV vừa qua, nhà cầm quyền Cộng sản Việt Nam vô cùng sai lầm khi tập trung dân cư đông đúc rồi ra lệnh test nhanh kháng nguyên và phân loại F0, F1, F2, F3, sau đó đưa tất cả đi cách ly tập trung, không có thuốc uống, thiếu mọi phương tiện chăm sóc y khoa. Bệnh nhân bị lây chéo nên đã tử vong hàng chục nghìn người. Điều này cho thấy sự quản lý điều hành yếu kém về mặt y tế và xem thường mạng sống sinh dân, đã vi phạm về quyền con người. Thứ tư, nạn buôn người và trẻ em trong nước và ngoài nước thường trực diễn ra ở các biên giới, ở các nước như Campuchia, Thái Lan, Trung Quốc, Đài Loan, Hàn Quốc, Malaysia, Singapore, Nhật Bản, Ả Rập Xê Út, vân vân. Nạn nhân bị cưỡng bức lao động hoặc trở thành nô lệ giúp việc gia đình hay nô lệ tình dục có sự cấu kết của cán bộ nhà nước đã trở thành vấn nạn, làm nhiều người phụ nữ sống trong tủi nhục, khổ đau, thường xuyên xảy ra khắp mọi nơi trên thế giới. Cuối cùng, tôi mong dự luật nhân quyền HR 3001 do dân biểu Smith khởi xướng sớm được Quốc hội Hoa Kỳ thông qua để trở thành đạo luật có hiệu lực nhằm thúc đẩy nhà cầm quyền Cộng sản Việt Nam tiến bộ hơn nữa về lĩnh vực nhân quyền.
Dạ, chúng con kính cảm ơn Hòa Thượng. Thank you, Most Venerable Thích Thiện Minh. Our next testimonial is from Reverend Nguyễn Văn Lý. Reverend Thaddeus Nguyễn Văn Lý is a Roman Catholic priest and dissident involved in many pro-democracy movements, for which he was imprisoned for almost 15 years. For his ongoing imprisonment and continuous non-violent protests, Amnesty International adopted Father Lý in December 1983 as a prisoner of conscience. Most recently, his support for the Block 8406 manifesto has led to his sentence on March 30th, 2007 for an additional 8 years in prison. He can't be with us today, so we would like to welcome Dr. Giáp Phúc Đạt, who will read a statement from the Reverend Nguyễn Văn Lý. Please welcome Dr. Giáp.
Good morning, everyone. We talk about Thiêng An Monastery. Since the end of 2015, the Vietnam government has sent police to demolish the statue of Christ 3 times, burn the pie hills of the monastery many times, and prevented guests from visiting the monastery. Several times in 2017 and 2018, the police beat up the monk of the monastery to the point of passing out. Abbot Anton Nguyễn Văn Đức, the priest who provided spiritual support for the monks who fought to preserve the land for the monastery, had to go to France to take care of the responsibility of the order in 2018, is now not allowed to return to Vietnam by the government. Currently, the situation at the monastery is still very tense. The Tam Thoa Parish Church on Nguyen Du Street, Dong Hới, Quang Binh Province was built in 1887 on a land area of 10,000 square meters of Dong Hai Parish, formerly Ho Luy, established in 1631. In 1954, some of the Tam Thoa parishioners have migrated to the south. In the period between 1964 and 1972, Tam Thoa Church was severely damaged by the war, leaving only the bell tower. After 1975, Quang Binh Parish and the Tam Thoa Associates had set up a temporary church to offer prayers and wanted to repair the old church. But the local Quang Binh Communist government demolished this temporary church, and on February the 26th, 1997, with the decision number 143, QD UB confiscated this bell tower as a war relic and divided this piece of 10,000 meters square of the parish to the local communist official. From the beginning of 2018 and throughout 2019, the Nghệ An Communist Authority held a charge against Father Anthony Đăng Hiếu Nam, pastor of the My Khánh Parish, and persecuted members of My Khánh Parish, Vĩnh Hoa Parish, Khánh Thành Commune, Yên Thành District, Bảo Nhâm Religious District of the Vinh Diocese, Nghệ An Province. Every time the parish organized a prayer ceremony for justice and peace, prisoner of conscience, the ruling Communist Party authorized the police, thugs, and the red flag groups to surround, curse, throw stones and filth at the church and at the laity, and destroy believer houses. When the Catholic Church protests against Formosa, the cybersecurity law, the special economic zone law, the communist government mobilized hundreds of plainclothes police, thousands of red flag thugs surrounded and terrorized the parish, blocked the road, went online to curse and threatened to kill, put 8 gas posts around the parish to intimidate. They have organized denunciation and demanded to kill Father Nam. Two Team Church. From 2015, especially since the beginning of 2018, the Saigon Authority have been pressuring to encroach, auction, and confiscate the land of Two Team Parish and the monastery of the Lovers of the Cross at Two Team, founded in 1840 in District 2, Saigon, with 3 schools. Now, the Communist Party media, to prepare public opinion for the clearance of Catholic facility in Two Team, forced the church and the monastery to be relocated by blocking access to the congregation, cutting off electricity and water, according to the 1996 map by the Saigon Authority with the plan to build Two Team new urban area. The church and the monastery were completely outside the plan, but the Saigon Communist Authority announced that this map was lost and has not been found. There are insufficient reasons to force the religious facilities to be relocated. The new urban construction project is only for economic purposes, not related to the security and national defense. Take too lightly cultural and religious heritage and target economic interests at own cost to auction 9 lots of lands, 72,000 square meters, and turn to them into a new trade and service center. Loc Hưng Parish in Ward 6, Tân Bình District, Saigon, was founded in 1954 with 5,000 people and 650 families. Of these, 600 people of more than 150 poor families, Loc Hưng are cultivating 48,000 square meters of land. On 3 days, the 4th, the 8th, and the 12th of January 2019, Saigon authorities sent bulldozers and the police to destroy Catholic anthers, flatten 200 houses of more than 150 families, and of 18 disabled veterans of the Republic of South Vietnam on the eve of the Lunar New Year of the Pig. Throughout 2019, the Saigon Communist Authority has not resolved the injustice there for the 600 poor Loc Hưng people who lost their homes. Then, in early December 2019, the local Saigon Communist Authority again prevented people from cultivating the land. On December 2019, the police destroyed the nativity scenes of Loc Hưng Parish for the second time, smashed the statue of Our Lady, and arrested 3 people who protested this evil doing. 600 poor people of Loc Hưng suffered this fate on the eve of New Year 2020. All in all, these are clear cases of human rights violation. The Social Republic of Vietnam not only takes away its people's right to worship, it also takes away the people's right to exist. It takes away the church properties without the due process. Church, school, monastery, convent, land, even cemetery. Even the dead can be left alone to rest in peace. With this, I conclude Father Nguyen Văn Lý report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Yap, for delivering a statement on behalf of Reverend Nguyen Văn Lý. At this time, now we have the honor to invite the Venerable Thích Vĩnh Phước, who is the author of Phước Bộ Temple, Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu, and a representative of the Sangha of the United Buddhist Church of Vietnam, and a member of the Vietnamese Interreligious Council. Chúng con xin mời Thượng tọa có lời chào ngắn với quan khách.
Tăng đoàn Giáo hội Phật giáo Việt Nam Thống nhất kính gửi Quốc hội Hoa Kỳ. Tôi là Thích Vĩnh Phước, trụ trì chùa Phước Bửu, ấp Thành Sơn 1A, xã Phước Thuận, huyện Xuyên Mộc, tỉnh Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu. Hiện nay đang sinh hoạt trong tổ chức Tăng đoàn Giáo hội Phật giáo Việt Nam Thống nhất và là thành viên Hội đồng Liên tôn Việt Nam. Kính đôi điều gửi đến Quốc hội Hoa Kỳ. Suốt 46 năm dưới sự cai trị độc tài toàn trị của nhà nước Cộng sản Việt Nam, không có tổ chức tôn giáo độc lập nào được tự do sinh hoạt. Cả tổ chức và cá nhân nếu muốn sinh hoạt đầy đủ pháp lý phải nằm trong mặt trận tổ quốc và chịu sự điều khiển của tổ chức này. Ngược lại, nếu tổ chức và cá nhân nào không nằm trong những tổ chức chịu sự chi phối quản lý của mặt trận tổ quốc sẽ bị cấm cản và đàn áp khốc liệt. Hiện nay các tổ chức dân sự độc lập đều bị đàn áp, những thành viên đã bị bắt bớ giam cầm. Vì vậy các tổ chức này bị tê liệt. Nhà nước Cộng sản Việt Nam lấy tổ chức Phật giáo được thừa nhận làm công cụ khi cần, chứng tỏ tự do tôn giáo hoặc tấn công các tổ chức và các cơ sở tôn giáo không trực thuộc nhà nước. Một vụ việc điển hình là nhà cầm quyền tỉnh Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu đã sử dụng Giáo hội Phật giáo Việt Nam tỉnh Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu kiện tranh chấp tỉnh thất Đạt Quang, xã Bảo Lâm, huyện Xuyên Mộc, tỉnh Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu. hoặc trường hợp lễ tang của trưởng lão Hòa thượng Thích Thiện Hạnh, thường thụ tăng đoàn Giáo hội Phật giáo Việt Nam Thống nhất. Tháng 5 2021, Hòa thượng viên tịch tại chùa Phước Thành nên quý Hòa thượng trong tăng đoàn Giáo hội Phật giáo Việt Nam Thống nhất chuẩn bị lo tang lễ cho cố Hòa thượng, nhưng Giáo hội Phật giáo Việt Nam tỉnh Thừa Thiên nhận chỉ đạo của nhà nước về đưa nhục thân lên tổ đình Bảo Quốc làm tang lễ. Xưa nay, nguyện vọng những người đã khuất luôn được tôn trọng, nhất là những người đức cao vọng trọng. Những nhà cầm quyền Việt Nam đã phá hủy điều này. Các ngôi chùa và cơ sở tôn giáo hoạt động độc lập bị rất nhiễu, gây khó khăn như chùa Thiên Quang tại xã Hòa Bình, huyện Xuyên Mộc, tỉnh Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu. Nhưng ngày gần đây, vào tháng 5 vào ngày 5 tháng 11 năm 2021, Ủy ban Nhân dân huyện Xuyên Mộc đã gửi công văn đến yêu cầu thầy Thích Thiên Thuận, thầy danh làng Phước Bình phải từ tháo gỡ những công trình đã xây dựng trong những năm trước mà phải từ tháo dỡ. Nhà cầm quyền lấy cớ làm ống nước để chia cắt đất cấu trúc liên hoàng của chùa Thiên Quang. Không cho ai trong chùa làm hộ khẩu. Việc này đã xảy ra từ nhiều năm nay. Từ tháng 6 năm 2019, nhà cầm quyền địa phương đã đặt camera giám sát người ra vào chùa Phật Bửu, cản trở công việc xây dựng cổng tam quan. Băng rôn được treo lên trong lễ tiểu tượng của Hòa thượng Thích Thanh Tịnh sau 1 giờ bị lấy sơn xịt xóa đi làm hoen ổ băng rôn. Ngày 7 tháng 10 năm 2021, Công an tỉnh Lâm Đồng kết hợp với Công an tỉnh Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu đến chùa Phước Bửu Bắc An Đinh Văn Hải. Trước khi vào chùa Bắc Hải, công an đã cho người cắt điện và xông vào áp chế tất cả những người trong chùa, không ai được cầm lên điện thoại. Nhưng an ninh được tự tung tự tác dùng điện thoại quay phim chụp hình mọi người. Thử hỏi nếu hành động công an đúng, tại sao lại sợ việc người dân quay phim, trong khi đó An Ninh Văn Hải là người bị khuyết tật, chỉ dùng mạng xã hội để bày tỏ suy nghĩ của mình. Việc bắt bớ giam cầm người dân gần đây nói lên điều gì? Bịt miệng người dân, không cho phản ánh về việc làm sai trái trong việc cai trị đất nước trong cách chống dịch. Từ việc bắt người bị bệnh vào nơi tập trung cho đến cưỡng bức bắt người tiếp xúc với người nhiễm bệnh Covid, gọi là F1, cách ly tập trung là việc làm tùy tiện, vi phạm nhân quyền. Nhà cầm quyền Việt Nam luôn luôn đàn áp những cá nhân và những tổ chức tôn giáo không được nhà nước thừa nhận bằng cách tuyên truyền những người này là phản động của ngày bị bắt. Nhà cầm quyền cũng đang bắt giam giữ thầy Thích Nhật Huệ, thầy danh Phan Trung, chỗ ở lúc bị bắt là thôn Ra Chai 2, xã Phú Hội, huyện Đức Trọng, tỉnh Lâm Đồng, từ tháng 11 năm 2016 với bản án 8 năm tù giam. Trên đây là vài việc sơ lược phúc trình để thấy rằng đất nước Việt Nam chưa có tự do tôn giáo, chưa có dân chủ, nhân quyền. Chùa Phước Bửu ngày 10 tháng 11 năm 2021, Tổng ủy viên Tài chánh Tăng đoàn Giáo hội Phật giáo Việt Nam Thống nhất Tỷ Kheo Thích Việt Phước.
Dạ, cảm ơn Thượng tọa Thích Vinh Phước. Xin mời Thượng tọa mở máy để chào quan khách, có đôi lời chào quan khách. Dạ, không có nghe được, chúng con xin cảm ơn Thượng tọa đã có đôi lời cho cái buổi hội thảo hôm nay. Xin mời chị Quỳnh.
Thank you, Venerable Thích Vĩnh Phước. Our next speaker will be Subdignitary Hứa Phi, who is the founder and subdignitary of the Representative Committee of the Popular Bloc of Cao Đài Church. In 1996, Along with leaders of other independent religions, he co-founded and is now a co-chair of the Interfaith Council of Vietnam. In 2016, he co-founded and is now a co-chair of the United Council of Vietnamese in Homeland and Overseas. Welcome, Subdignitary. Xin mời chánh trị sự ạ.
Dạ, cảm ơn diễn đàn. Hôm nay ngày 17 tháng 11 năm 2021, kính thưa Chính phủ Hoa Kỳ, Bộ Ngoại giao, quý cơ quan công quyền quốc tế về tự do tôn giáo, nhân quyền ở Liên Hiệp Quốc. Tôi, Chánh sự Hữu Phi, trưởng ban đại diện khối nhân sinh Đạo Có Đài, đồng chủ tịch Hội đồng Liên tôn Việt Nam, đồng chủ tịch Hội đồng Liên kết Quốc nội và Hải ngoại. Kính thưa quý vị, con người sống ở đâu, bất cứ một cái quốc gia nào, dầu tư bản hay cộng sản hay độc tài, đều có quyền sống trong hòa bình, hạnh phúc, theo nguyên tắc đạo lý ở đời. Cần phải tuân theo quy định của bản tuyên ngôn quốc tế nhân quyền năm 1948. Và tất cả quý vị là những chiến sĩ hòa bình của nhân loại. Điều này cần phải phát huy rộng rãi trên thế giới. Chúng tôi sẽ nói ở Việt Nam có tự do tôn giáo, nhân quyền có được thực thi hay không? Xin thưa với quý vị là không có. Mà còn bị đàn áp một cách tinh vi, chỉ có những người trong cuộc mới biết. Chẳng hạn như các tôn giáo chánh truyền ở Việt Nam. Cộng sản Việt Nam đã đưa những đảng viên trá hình vào làm chức sắc các tôn giáo quốc dân. Nhà cầm quyền hỗ trợ xây dựng lên những cơ sở tôn giáo như chùa, nhà thờ, thánh thất đẹp rộng lớn để lừa gạt các tín đồ của các tôn giáo và dư luận thế giới. Là ở Việt Nam có tự do tôn giáo, nhân quyền, nhưng kế hoạch của Cộng sản là dùng những tổ chức này duy trì cho chế độ Cộng sản ở Việt Nam qua sự chỉ thị của Ban Tôn giáo Chính phủ. Dẫn chứng cụ thể là trong năm 2021, sau khi nhà cầm quyền Cộng sản Việt Nam lấy hết những cơ sở tôn giáo chánh truyền ở những địa phương trong nước, đưa cho Hội đồng trưởng Quảng Cao Đài Tây Ninh là một tổ chức. Cái tổ chức này do Đảng Cộng sản Việt Nam lập nên năm 1979. Sau khi Cộng sản Bắc Việt chiếm miền Nam Cộng Hòa, tổ chức này thực hiện theo quy định của nhà cầm quyền Cộng sản Việt Nam, chứ không có đại diện cho tôn giáo chính truyền. Vì vậy, tín đồ chân truyền của Đạo Cao Đài Tòa Thánh Tây Ninh gần đây ở các địa phương cùng nhau thành lập thiên bàn thờ Đức Chí Tôn tại Tư Gia, thì bị an ninh và chính quyền địa phương đàn áp công khai, và những gia đình của những tín đồ đó bị cô lập và tước đoạt quyền tự do công cộng. Như ở Thánh thất Tuy An, tỉnh Bình Định, Phú Yên, sau khi nhà cầm quyền Cộng sản dùng xe cơ giới sang bằng phá chùa, đồng đạo Cao Đài Tòa Thánh Tây Ninh không có chỗ để sinh hoạt đạo sự. Vào tháng 4 năm 2021, đồng đạo mượn nhà của chánh lịch sự Nguyễn Hiệp và chánh lịch sự Đoàn Thị Thân làm văn phòng của tộc đạo để có chỗ cho nhân dân sinh hoạt thì bị chính quyền địa phương đàn áp thô bạo. Ở Tây Ninh và những địa phương trong nước, về việc tang tế sự lễ nghi cho người quá cố, đồng đạo đứng cúng viếng tiễn đưa người chết thì bị phạt. Công an giao thông lập chốt chặn đường, phạt xe mô tô vài trăm ngàn, xe ô tô bị phạt đến 7-8 triệu đồng tiền Việt Nam, như ở Dương Minh Châu, Tiền Giang, ở Gò Công, vân vân. Trên đây là một số việc trong nhiều việc mà trách nhiệm của tôi là trưởng ban đại diện khối nhân dân đạo cao đài tòa thánh Tây Ninh nêu rõ lên cho công luận biết. Và ở đây chúng tôi đề nghị quý vị có trách nhiệm. Chúng tôi là những chức sắc và tín đồ chân truyền của đạo cao đài tòa thánh Tây Ninh do Đức Chí Tôn khai mở năm 1926. Vậy thì tính pháp lý của đạo cao đài tòa thánh Tây Ninh đối với quốc tế thì chúng tôi là những người chủ thể. Sau năm 1975, Cộng sản Bắc Việt chiếm miền Nam Cộng Hòa, rồi họ cải tạo các tôn giáo chánh truyền ở Việt Nam đi theo hướng cộng sản quốc tế. Về việc này không đúng theo luật công bình thiên đạo. Nếu nghiêng về sức mạnh và vật chất thì thế giới chưa được hòa bình, thịnh vượng trong đạo đức. Kính chào quý vị, tôi Chánh Lý sự Hứa Phi ở Việt Nam xin nêu lên một số vấn đề. Xin cảm ơn diễn đàn và kính chào thính kiến.
Xin cảm ơn Chánh Lý sự Hứa Phi. Thank you. Now we have the honor to invite Pastor Vàng Chí Minh. It's from the monk ethnic community and the clergy of the Protestant Church. Due to his family religious belief, his father was imprisoned many times and killed by the Vietnamese communists. Pastor Van became a Protestant pastor of the Northern Vietnam sections. He was imprisoned many times for his religious choice. Welcome, Pastor Vàng. Xin mời Mục sư Vàng.
Sorry for the technicalities. Pastor Vang's internet is in and out. I will go ahead and read his statement on his behalf. I am Vang Chí Minh, a U.S. citizen and currently living in Minnesota. I was born in northern Vietnam of Hmong ethnicity. I support the bill for the Vietnam Human Rights Act because I've been a victim of the Vietnamese authorities since 1963. In Vietnam, there are about 1 million Hmong people living in the northern region bordering China. From 1963 until 1978, the Vietnamese regime began a process of allowing the Vietnamese people to illegally acquire land belonging to the Hmong and destroying the local Hmong traditions. Our local dignitaries lost their positions, which were taken over by the Vietnamese people. We lost about 5 million kilometers square of cultivated land. From 1990 until now, the Vietnamese regime continues to oppress our people. Because we become Protestants. In 2011, in the case of Mường Né, I'm sorry, I'm being interrupted because of about 13,000 Hmong left their villages to hide in the southern provinces or escaped to nearby countries such as China, Laos, Myanmar, and Thailand. All of our chapels were destroyed. I myself was in prison from February the 2nd, 1990 to June the 10th, 1990. I was able to escape to China on June 12, 1990. Afterward, I hid in other cities in northern Vietnam. I was recaptured from May 8, 1996 until November 2004. In 2005, a close friend of mine told me that I have to leave Vietnam, otherwise I would die at the hands of the Vietnamese communists. So on January the 2nd, 2005, I escaped to Thailand. I applied for refugee status with the United States. On March the 20th, 2006, my family and I were accepted as refugees, and finally I immigrated to the United States on November the 18th, 2005. Currently, the Vietnamese regime has not stopped its policy of oppression against our ethnic minority. The Hmong, who currently live in the northern mountainous area, are not free to practice their religious activities. They are forced to follow the Vietnamese Evangelical Church, controlled by the Vietnamese regime, who they migrated to the Central Highlands, and are forced to follow the Vietnamese Church, also controlled by the Vietnamese regime. There are about 10,000 people who had their ID cards taken away in the last 20 years. Not until BPSOS, other human rights group, and the United States Department of State denounced their illegal actions did 100 people get their IDs back, but only in Linh Trong Village and Dam Rong Village, Ham Dong Province. In Nam Vạc, one village, Nam Ban Commune, Nam Mun District, Lai Châu Province, a village near the border of China, there were 130 people who refused citizenship because they married Chinese Hmong. This situation started in 1974 until now. Since March 2001, with the help of BPSOS, the Vietnamese regime started to give them citizenship status. Currently in China, Myanmar, Laos, and other southwestern Asian countries, there are about 2,000 Hmong living in the poor conditions while waiting for the refugee status. They could not return to Vietnam for fear of prosecution and imprisonment without a trial. Due to many reasons above, I strongly support the bill for Vietnam human rights. I appeal to the U.S. Congress to pass this law to help our ethnic minorities to get justice. Thank you very much.
Mời mục sư có đôi lời ạ. Yes, thank you, Pastor Van. Mục sư Van có thể nói được không ạ?
Let's move on.
Thank you, Pastor Van. Our next speaker is Mr. Trần Văn Thường, a leader of Vietnamese Buddhist Youth Organization in Vietnam, member of the Unified Buddhist Church of Vietnam since 2003, founder of the Pháp Biên Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu Province, original founder and adult leader of the Khánh Biên Buddhist Youth Organization. Please welcome Mr. Trần Văn Thường. Xin mời anh Thường ạ.
Kính thưa hội nghị, tôi là Trần Văn Thường ở tại tỉnh Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu, Việt Nam.
tôi là một trong những nạn nhân bị bức hại vì hoạt động tôn giáo. Rất là vui mừng và biết ơn ban tổ chức đã cho chúng tôi một cái cơ hội để lên đây chia sẻ một sự thật đau thương mà nhà cầm quyền đã đàn áp tôn giáo tại Việt Nam bao nhiêu năm qua. Kính thưa quý vị, vào năm 1999, chúng tôi, một nhóm cư sĩ, cùng nhau xây dựng lên một ngôi chùa Pháp Biên, quy tụ chừng một đạo tràng chừng 50 người và một đơn vị gia đình Phật tử 80 em thanh thiếu đồng niên thường xuyên sinh hoạt và tu học. Nhà cầm quyền đã cấm cản và mời làm việc nhiều lần nhiều năm nhằm khủng bố tinh thần qua nhiều hình thức. Cấm mãi nhưng không được, vì họ không tìm ra cái lý do nào phi pháp cả. Cuối cùng, họ bắt buộc chúng tôi phải gia nhập và giao cơ sở cho cơ sở thờ tự cho giáo hội nhà nước quản lý, tức là giáo hội Phật giáo Việt Nam. Đương nhiên không thể nào mà chúng tôi chấp nhận được sự ép buộc phi lý này. Cho đến năm 2011, nhà cầm quyền đã đưa công an, quân đội đủ thành phần và xe cơ giới đến để tàn phá ngôi chùa, cày xới ngôi chùa thành một đống gạch vụn, làm náo động cả một vùng trời và dao động nhân tâm con người. Nhưng đối với họ đã bất chấp. Chúng tôi kêu cứu và gửi đơn đi các cấp từ thấp đến cao của nhà cầm quyền, nhưng chỉ có tuyệt vọng vì không có ai trả lời. Sau đó chúng tôi đã gửi 3 bản báo cáo cho Liên Hiệp Quốc, cho đặc phái viên phụ trách về tự do tôn giáo và niềm tin của Liên Hiệp Quốc. Từ đó chúng tôi thường xuyên đến lễ bái trên đống gạch đổ nát. Cho đến năm 2013 thì chúng tôi có xây dựng lại một căn nhà tạm để duy trì sinh hoạt gia đình Phật tử và tu học. Còn phần đông các tín đồ lớn tuổi thì vì họ quá sợ nên họ không dám đến chùa nữa. Nói về cá nhân và gia đình của tôi thì vì hoạt động tôn giáo cho nên bị công an bắt giam nhiều lần. Lần gần nhất là con trai tôi đã bị công an bắt cóc và tùy tiện giam giữ vào ngày 10 tháng 9 năm 2020. Sau đó, công an đã gây áp lực để con tôi bị hãng làm việc sa thải. Vì thời lượng hội thảo có hạn nên tôi chỉ được vắn tắt như bấy nhiêu. Tôi hy vọng Quốc hội Hoa Kỳ và các tổ chức lên tiếng giúp cho Việt Nam sớm có nhân quyền và có được cái quyền tự do sinh hoạt tôn giáo. Xin gửi lời cảm ơn chân thành của tôi đến ban tổ chức hội thảo cũng như là các vị dân biểu và thượng nghị sĩ của Hoa Kỳ. Xin trân trọng kính chào.
Xin cảm ơn Huynh trưởng Trần Văn Thượng. Thank you, leader. Thank you to our religious leader for your testimony today. Your testimony demonstrates there's a need for human rights and religious freedom in Vietnam. It takes courage and sacrifice to make the statement today, so thank you for your courage today. At this moment, and ladies and gentlemen, reporter, we are just a few minutes behind, but at this point we'll move on to the Congressional Remark. So we invite the Honorable Congressman Alan Lowenthal. He's serving as the 4th term in the U.S. House of Representatives represent the California 47th District, which encompasses Little Saigon. He is the co-chair of the Vietnam Caucus. Mr. Phong Le, Senior Director, Orange County Director, will read the statement from Congressman's behalf. Mr. Phong Le, welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Phong. I work for Congressman Lowenthal. Actually, I have a video from the Congressman. I just need a few more minutes for it to be ready. And if you could make me a presenter, then that way I can play the video. So if there's another speaker, would you mind please let that speaker go ahead in front of me, and then I'll have that video shortly after, if that's okay.
Certainly we'll make that arrangement. We'll move on to the next one.
Thank you. In waiting with us, we are honored to invite the Honorable Anurima Bhagava, Commissioner, U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. Commissioner Bhagava earned her law degree from Columbia Law School and graduated magna cum laude from Harvard College. She promotes dignity and justice through narrative and storytelling. Please welcome Honorable Commissioner. Are you still muted? Oh, anh Hân, so unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now? Great, thank you. I'm so grateful to be able to join you today. My name is Anurima Bhargava, and I'm representing the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, or USIRF, on which I serve as a commissioner and recently chaired. Thank you for organizing this conference and for inviting USIRF to discuss freedom of religion and belief in Vietnam. For those of you who are unfamiliar with USIRF, it is an independent, bipartisan U.S. government body that was created by the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998, or IRFA. Our mandate is to monitor religious freedom worldwide using international standards, and to make policy recommendations to the U.S. President, Secretary of State, and Congress. Each year, USIRF publishes an annual report describing religious freedom conditions in countries considered to be amongst the worst violators of religious freedom in the world. Under IRFA, the State Department is required to designate as a country of particular concern any country with a government that engages in or tolerates systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations of religious freedom. USIRF has continually recommended Vietnam's designation as a CPC for nearly 20 years, including in our most recent 2021 annual report, even though the State Department removed Vietnam from the CPC list 15 years ago. We continue to make this recommendation because we remain concerned that systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations of religious freedom still occur in Vietnam, despite modest and incremental improvements over the years. We are concerned about the government's ongoing persecution of ethnic minority Hmong and Montagnard Christians in Vietnam's northern and central highlands. Local authorities, as you have already discussed, subject members of these vulnerable groups to beatings, detention, imprisonment, torture, and forced renunciation of faith. As a form of retaliation for the refusal to renounce their faith, authorities have denied household registration documents and ID cards that are necessary for living a normal life in Vietnam. We also remain concerned about the restrictive law on religion and belief and how it's being targeted against unregistered religious groups, such as the Independent Wahao, Buddhist, Unified Buddhists, Cao Dai followers, Catholics, and many, many others. USIRF also continues to pay attention to the plight of religious prisoners of conscience in Vietnam. Last September, USIRF celebrated the release of Pastor A. Dao, who USIRF Commissioner James Carr adopted through our Religious Prisoners of Conscience program. And I continue to advocate for the release of Nguyen Bac Thuan, a Wahao Buddhist human rights lawyer who worked to assist prisoners of conscience and defend the rights of religious communities. Before the COVID pandemic, we traveled to Vietnam and we met with NGOs, faith communities, and government officials to discuss and raise concerns about religious freedom conditions in Vietnam. Our visit at the time further reinforced our CPC recommendation. USERF is grateful that many members of Congress have expressed similar concerns regarding the Vietnam government's religious freedom violations. In May of this year, Congressman Chris Smith introduced H.R. 3001, the Vietnam Human Rights Act, with strong bipartisan support. The legislation reiterated that the promotion and protection of religious freedom remains an integral part of U.S. foreign policy and requires the U.S. government to prioritize religious freedom in its bilateral relations with Vietnam. Furthermore, in line with USERF recommendations, the legislation urges the administration to designate Vietnam as a country of particular concern for its systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations of religious freedom, and to employ sanctions and other appropriate tools to ensure that independent religious groups can operate freely and without restriction in Vietnam. Indeed, since the normalization of relations between the two countries in 1995, the United States' principled engagement with Vietnam on religious freedom has led to concrete improvements. Today, as the United States deepens its relations with Vietnam, including a potential upgrade from the existing comprehensive partnership to a strategic partnership, we must continue to exert pressure on the Vietnamese government to improve religious freedom conditions in the country. For its part, USERF will continue to engage with the Vietnamese government and emphasize that it's in its best interest to respect freedom of religion or belief, as research has shown that countries that respect religious freedom tend to be more stable and economically prosperous than those that do not. USERF will also continue to tirelessly advocate for those who are in prison for their faith in Vietnam, and for those who are at this point unable to practice their religion freely. Thank you again for inviting me to address you today at this important conference.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your work and your leadership. We look forward to collaborating and working with you. Thank you for your time. At this point, we're just going to circle back to Mr. Phong, Lý Phong. Mr. Lý Phong, you ready?
Yes, yes. Let me share my screen real quick. Can you see Congressman Lowenthal now on your screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, let me play the video then.
I do not have sound.
You do not have sound? Okay, give me 1 second.
This is the Hưng. There's a place when you share. There's a place where you turn on include computer sound. Under you click that share button. There's the top line has include computer sound. Click on that.
Okay, give me 1 second. I got it. I got it. Let me do it again. Sorry. Let me try it again.
Hello, everyone. This is Congressman Alan Lowenthal, and I'm honored to address you during this conference on the deteriorating human rights and religious freedom in Vietnam. As the co-chair of the Congressional Caucus on Vietnam, I am proud to be an original co-sponsor of H.R. 3001, the Vietnam Human Rights Act, introduced by my colleague and fellow co-chair of the caucus, Congressman Chris Smith. H.R. 3001 would allow the United States to sanction Vietnamese officials and others who are complicit in the systematic violations of internationally recognized human rights, including particularly severe violations of religious freedom. I'm glad to see bipartisan support for this legislation from the House of Representatives, and I hope to see the same in the Senate, so that the Congress can send a clear and unified message to the government of Vietnam that we stand for human rights and religious freedom. As you know, while the world is battling the COVID pandemic, the communist government of Vietnam took advantage of the situation and carried out arrests and crackdowns against dissidents, independent journalists, activists in Vietnam, including the prominent blogger and journalist Pham Dong Tran. I've spoken up many times on these arrests, and most recently, I joined my colleagues in the House of Representatives in sending a letter to President Biden asking the United States to raise the case of Pham Dong Tran with the government of Vietnam and demand for her release. Recently, the Minister of Public Security of Vietnam, Tho Lam, generated tremendous public outrage when video footage on social media appeared showing the communist leader that he ate a steak covered in 24-karat gold flakes at a restaurant run by the social media star and restaurateur known as Salt Bay, which could cost more than $1,000 at taxpayers' expense. This is an insult to the people of Vietnam who are suffering from the devastating impacts of COVID. Furthermore, the public minister, Tho Lam, is one of the worst human rights violators in Vietnam and should be sanctioned by the U.S. government using the Global Magnitsky Act. I believe that the United States wants a closer relationship with Vietnam in an effort to counter China's aggressions in the region, but we should not ignore the deteriorating human rights condition in the country, and it is now time for the United States to hold Vietnam accountable. I look forward to continuing to work with all Vietnamese American organizations and with my colleagues in Congress to advocate for human rights and religious freedom in Vietnam, and to hold Vietnamese officials who blatantly violate the basic fundamental freedoms of Vietnamese citizens, particularly dissidents, bloggers, journalists, and independent religious leaders. Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Thank you, Representative Lowenthal, and thank you, Mr. Lee Pham, for being here today. We'll move on at this point. I have the honor to introduce and invite the Honorable Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa. Senator Grassley was first elected to Iowa State Legislature in 1958, and 16 years later, he was elected to serve at the U.S. House of Representatives in 1974. In 1980, Senator Grassley was elected to the U.S. Senate. He is currently the ranking member of Senate Judicial Committee and serves on the Senate Finance Committee, Senate Budget Committee, and Senate Agriculture Committee and Joint Committee on Taxation. Senator Grassley, it's an honor and welcome. Please take it away, sir.
Thank you for the honor of giving a few short remarks at your conference. I appreciate it very, very much. And before I give those remarks, I'd like to express the close relationship that Iowa has with Vietnamese people, because we had a Governor Ray 40 some years ago who knew about the problems of people fleeing Vietnam. And he made a trip to Geneva, I think in the neighborhood of 79, 80, or 81. I don't remember the exact years. And Governor Ray said to the world that we ought to help the Vietnamese people find a safe place. And he said that Iowa would take its fair share of the people leaving Vietnam at that particular time. And we have taken that fair share, and they have turned out to be outstanding citizens and contributing greatly to the people of Iowa, to the civic leadership of Iowa, to the economy of Iowa, and all sorts of adjectives you can give about their contribution. So now to the point that you asked me to speak to. As a Christian, I'm always sad to hear about people who are persecuted for their faith. Each and every person is endowed with natural rights to practice their religion free from government persecution. Too often we in America that have that freedom take it for granted. So it's always important for us not only to reflect on our own freedom and thank God for that, but it's also a reminder that around the world that other people don't have that same. And Vietnam is one of these places. Religious freedom is part of our identity as Americans, so it's natural advancing international religious freedom, and that we should play a very strong role in that as a country, and it needs to be a prominent part of our foreign policy. Vietnam has been identified as a country of particular concern. It's been so identified by the independent United States Commission on International Religious Freedom for its poor record on religious freedom. It's sad for me to say that it has not been so designated by our own State Department, and that's something we need to press the State Department to do. The work that your organization and your conference does to draw attention to this issue is very, very important for the reason that of the people of Vietnam, but also, as I previously said, for the United States to realize what great freedoms we have in this country that too often take for granted. So by drawing attention to this, I want to thank you for doing that. As a United States Senator, it is important to be reminded of the situation in Vietnam as I consider legislation related to our relationships with that country. So once again, referring to my own faith as a Christian, it is good to be reminded of the need to pray for people in Vietnam, both those being persecuted for their faith and for the persecutors that they see the heirs of their ways. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you, Senator Grassley, and we look forward to your leadership and helping move this to the finish line, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
At this point, we invite the Honorable Senator John Cornyn of Texas. Senator John Cornyn sits on the Senate Finance, Intelligence, and Judicial Committee. Senator Cornyn was chosen by his college to serve as a Republican whip, the second highest ranking position in the Senate Republican Conference. So at this point, Senator Cornyn will provide a statement in video.
Hi, I'm Texas Senator John Cornyn. I want to wish all my friends in the Vietnamese community warm regards for this year's Vietnam Human Rights Conference. As a longtime advocate for human rights in Vietnam, I've continued to fight against the tragic cycle of human rights abuses. That's why I'm proud to have introduced the Vietnam Human Rights Sanctions Act last Congress, and I was also glad to lead a letter to Secretary Blinken earlier this year calling for an end to these atrocities. I'm hopeful that with your help, we'll be able to put a stop to these vicious crimes. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference.
Thank you for your statement, Senator Connie, and we look forward to your support in the Senate as well. Ms. Gwen Pham.
Thank you, Senator Connie. Next, we would like to invite the Honorable Congresswoman Kathy Mcmorris Rogers, 5th Congressional District, Washington. The Congresswoman Rogers currently serves as the Republican leader on the House Energy and Commerce Committee. Welcome, Congresswoman Rogers.
Hi, everyone. It's Kathy Mcmorris Rogers from Eastern Washington. Thank you to everyone who helped put together today's event. I am sorry I couldn't be with you. I really wanted to be there, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to share a few words virtually. I'd also like to thank my friend and colleague, Representative Chris Smith, for his amazing work advocating for human rights in Vietnam. He's been a true leader on this issue. America was founded on the fundamental principles of individual liberty and that all are created equal. As late President Reagan once said, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We see this sad truth in nations around the world. So many live under the dark shadow of oppression. They are captive nations. Time and time again, we watch as so-called leaders manage to sabotage their once vibrant and prosperous nations with their socialist policies, corruption, and authoritarian rule. Instead of creating a better world, these governments have created refugee crises, with millions fleeing human rights abuses and religious persecution. Many of you in this room know how important this fight for freedom and against socialism and communism is, especially to those in Vietnam still fighting to overcome this dark reality. In the United States, religious freedom is fundamental to who we are. Nothing stands in the way of our individual rights to practice our own beliefs. Sadly, this is only a dream for many. Religious persecution continues to course through the blood of tyrants willing to control the way people think. Because a free-thinking people is the greatest threat a ruler faces. China is the perfect example of this. The Chinese Communist Party continues to be an oppressive threat to the religious freedom of the Vietnamese people, and they are a proven adversary of freedom and security around the world. As Americans, we cannot sit silently by and forget about the people who are fighting for the rights we hold dear. Instead, we must stand with the oppressed and work together to win the hearts and minds of their oppressors. By standing up to those who commit atrocities, we can change the course of history and improve the lives of millions. America is the greatest experiment in self-governance the world has ever known. We as Americans must stand in solidarity with the people in Vietnam who long for the freedom we often take for granted. We must also do more to ensure that these regimes do not have the financial capacity to keep oppressing their people. And we must encourage our allies to apply the same pressure. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak. I thank you for all that you do to protect freedom in Vietnam and around the world. Freedom is what makes America so unique, and we must never stop supporting those striving to secure it for themselves. God bless.
Thank you, Congresswoman Roger, for your statement today. At this point, we invite Congressman Tom Tiffany, 7th Congressional District of Wisconsin. Congressman Tiffany serves on the Committee of Natural Resources and Committee on Judiciary. Congressman also sent a video message, so at this point we invite the playing of the video. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me today as we seek to shine a light on the people of faith in Vietnam. For too long, Vietnam's communist dictatorship has been among the world's worst offenders when it comes to suppressing and limiting religious freedom. Buddhists, Catholics, and Protestants face a web of arbitrary restrictions on assembly, the production of religious texts, and even sharing the gospel with their friends and neighbors. Believers also face constant surveillance and harassment by security forces and local authorities. Hmong and Mackinac Christians face some of the worst treatment, including physical assault, imprisonment, confiscation of church property and assets, and pressure to renounce their faith in God. In recent years, the Vietnamese authorities have even published anti-Christian propaganda, increasing public hostility toward religion. This is wrong. In the 20-plus years since the United States and Vietnam normalized diplomatic ties, we've seen increased economic and security cooperation. Unfortunately, however, Vietnam's grip on freedom of expression, religious liberty, and basic civil rights continues to tighten, and too many prisoners of conscience remain in detention. The right to worship as one chooses is an inalienable right that comes from our Creator. It is not a privilege granted by governments of men. This is a universal principle, one that must guide American foreign policy, and I am committed to working with all of you to advance it. Thank you again, and God bless you.
Thank you, Congressman Tiffany. Next, we'd like to invite the Honorable Congressman Tom Emmer, 6th Congressional District of Minnesota. Congress Emmer serves on the House Committee on Financial Services, Cybersecurity Caucus, International Caucus, and the Congressional Cuba Working Group. He also sent the remark by videotape.
Hi, I'm Congressman Tom Emmer, and I represent Minnesota's 6th Congressional District. I can still remember when 40 years ago, Vietnamese refugees began to settle in the great state of Minnesota. Nicknamed boat people because of their perilous journey across the South China Sea in small fishing vessels, some were soldiers or government officials, but most were just regular people who had survived the violence and chaos of war, only to have their livelihoods and their freedom threatened by an oppressive communist regime. Since arriving in Minnesota, the Vietnamese community has thrived, with over 20,000 immigrants calling our state home. However, their family, friends, and loved ones who stayed in Vietnam are still being deprived of essential liberties. Their religious freedom is under threat of constant government surveillance, property seizure, arrests, or even physical assault at times. The freedom to worship is inalienable and should be experienced without question for every person around the globe. I'm proud to be a champion in the House of Representatives for religious liberty worldwide. Our nation must use our influence and power as a global leader to protect human rights, and particularly the freedom to worship. I support the Vietnamese people in their fight to secure this liberty. Thank you to the BYO National Leadership Council for hosting this event today, and to my colleagues in the bipartisan Congressional Vietnam Caucus for bringing a light to this important cause. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Emmer, for your statement today, and we look forward to your support. At this point, we just also receive statement of support and recognition of today's briefing from the Office of Senator Dianne Feinstein of California, Office of Senator Joni Ernst from Iowa, Office of Congresswoman Susan Wild, 7th Congressional District of Pennsylvania, Office of Congressman Dan Crenshaw, 2nd District, Texas. Due to time constraint, we won't be reading those statements, but we'll make it available online. So thank you, Senator. Thank you, Representative and Commissioner, for your time and remark today. We also like to thank you, Representative Senator, who are unable to attend, but have sent representative on their behalf. We appreciate your work and attention to this matter. We look forward to enlisting you as a co-sponsor if you haven't already on HR 3001, and we look forward working with you to the final patches and sign this into law. So let us know how we can be part of the group moving this forward. Ms. Quinn?
Yes, thank you.
Now we would like to have the honor of introducing Ms. Lin Nguyen, Chair of Thing Lục BYO Regional Leadership Council, who will facilitate the panel discussion to further understand HR 3001. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Lin Nguyen.
Thank you, moderators. Thank you, Mr. Go Nguyen and Ms. Quỳnh Phan. We will get back with you for the closing remarks. Please feel free to enter in your questions into the Q&A box. Now I'd like to recognize the Honorable Christopher Smith of New Jersey for introducing the HR 3001 Vietnam Human Rights Act and the following offices in attendance, which have co-sponsored the bill. The Office of Congresswoman Stephanie Bice, Congressman Lou Correa, Congresswoman Dina Titus, Congressman Colin Aldred, Congresswoman Carolyn Boudreaux, Congressman Alan Lowenthal. Thus far, we have 28 to 29 co-sponsors. We hope that you will continue to co-sponsor the bill. We have also heard from the courageous prisoners of conscience and the victims of violence for their exercising religious freedom in Vietnam's totalitarian system. We have two former prisoners of conscience in the audience with us, Mr. Michael Phương Minh Nguyen and Mr. Nguyễn Văn Hải, better known by his pen name Điếu Cày. In September 2022, in a one-day trial, Nguyễn Văn Hải received a harsh sentence of 12 years in imprisonment for disseminating anti-state information and materials. The Economist described the session as looking very much like an old-fashioned Soviet-style show trial. On the 17th of April, the U.S. State Department spokeswoman called Vietnam to release Nguyễn Văn Hải and other bloggers, stating that the three had done nothing more than exercising their universally recognized rights to freedom of expression. He was awarded the International Press Freedom Award for the New York-based Committee to Protect Journalists. In 2019, the communist regime handed Michael Nguyen 12 years in prison for activities overthrowing the People's Administration. He is the founder and editor-in-chief of the Thế Hệ magazine, founding member and chairman of Vietnam Entrepreneur Association in Southern California. Because of its ongoing egregious violation, USERF and Commissioner Bhagava have annually recommended that Vietnam should be designated as a country of particular concern since 2002. Next, we will introduce our distinguished panelists for our Q&A session. We have Mr. Hung Phan, the chairman of the board of directors, Vietnam Human Rights May 11th Organization, president of Vietnam Human Rights Act, HR 3001 Committee, advisor and former president of the Board of Executives of the Federation of Vietnamese American Communities in the USA, founder and advisor of the Republic of Vietnam Next Generation. We also have Pero Tazi, Republican Staff Director for the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission. In addition to serving as Senior Foreign Policy Advisor and Counsel to Representative Chris Smith of New Jersey. He previously held the position of Staff Director and Counsel of the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Africa, Global Health, Global Human Rights, and International Organizations. He received his JD from Fordham University School of Law and his BA from Columbia University. Welcome, Mr. Tazi and Mr. Phan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Linh.
Thank you for being here with us. And for the sake of time, let's dive into the questions. The first question will be for Mr. Fon. What different strategy will your committee approach the Congress to pass the bill at this time? And what's being done so far at the House and Senate level and its progress?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nguyen. So for the past 20 years, the previous version of legislation have passed the House for 3 occasions with overwhelming bipartisan support. I have stalled in the Senate. So for this time, okay, for our committee, try to advocate for the HR 3001 in the House. Okay, in the meantime, I would like to, okay, so far we have 28 co-sponsors for HR 2001 in the House. And in the meantime, okay, in the Senate, we would like some senators from the both parties introduce a similar Vietnam Human Rights Act in the Senate to accompany the HR 3001. And up to this point, you have 139 organizations across the nation have so far endorsed this bill to be passed in the Congress. And lately, last week, the 9th of November, today is 17 last week, and the bill was referred to the subcommittee on immigration and citizenship. And it is a good point for us to move forward, and hopefully we can do the bill to pass in the Congress.
Thank you. So our next question is for Mr. Tazi. So recently the HR 3001 was referred to the subcommittee on immigration and citizenship. What's the next step for the bill in the House, and how can we help?
Well, I think there's also going to be a referral to the House Foreign Affairs Committee. I think you should do what you are doing, which is contacting offices. I want to say one thing, because I think we've encountered some resistance, whereas in the past we haven't. And as I've talked to other offices, I think Mr. Lowenthal, when he was speaking, he put his finger on it. And there is a perception among some people in Congress that Vietnam can be a counter to China. And I think this belief or hope is overstated. And here's, I think, where you can also be helpful. I think the reason why this is overstated is, one, because Vietnam's government has, they have this 3-no policy, this essentially neutrality. They say that they're not going to use one country against another. And I think they are not an ally against Communist China. Communist Vietnam is not an ally against Communist Vietnam. Take them at their word. They say that. That's the first issue. I think you've also seen a lot of Chinese foreign direct investment and influence in Vietnam too, which is another reason why Vietnam is not going to be the counter against China that some things. In 2011, roughly $700 million of Chinese investment in Vietnam. You go to 2018, that jumped to $2.4 billion. So there is a big Chinese economic presence in Vietnam. But here is something that I think I really could use your help. I think that despite the public posturing, and the Vietnamese people have a long history of combating Chinese aggression, including, as we know, 1979, and certainly the Vietnamese people are very wary of China. But my sense is that just as China tries to use influence in American officials and American businesses, they also use their influence and corrupt Vietnamese government officials. And what I need, or what we need, is from you more concrete evidence of that, because I think in order to push this bill this time, we have to overcome this resistance that sees China or Vietnam as an ally against Communist China. And we always have to remember that we're talking about 2 communist governments, both of whom are very repressive. And if we really want to counter China, The way to do that is to make Vietnam more democratic, more respectful of freedom. And that's why the Vietnam Human Rights Act is so important, because it really does promote, whether it's religious freedom, whether it's labor rights, or whether it's internet freedom and freedom of the press. It really promotes that, and that's what's important. That's what's going to make Vietnam, to transform it into a true friend. So that's what I think. But any help that you can give on that, I think that would be helpful.
Thank you for that, and we definitely will try our best. I know that we're very motivated to have this bill pass into law, and its focus on the human rights and religious freedom. And we were just thinking, like, what, you know, at this point, we probably need a companion bill in the Senate. So what can we do to make that happen?
Well, I think you had a number of Senate offices. It was quite impressive that participated. I think it's important that you do have a bipartisan, you know, you have one person, and it could be one of the senators, whether Senator Grassley or Cornyn, you know, that's expressed support, Senator Feinstein there. But it's important, I think, that you introduce it with bipartisan support in the Senate, just as we did in the House. And that's the great thing, I think, about the Vietnam Human Rights Act. We had an even number of Democrats. We had mentioned Congressman Lowenthal, Lofgren, and Correa on the Democratic side. We had Congressman Chris Smith, who introduced it, along with Congresswoman Young Kim and Michelle Steele. I think that sense of balance, getting your Republican and Democratic senators to show, because this is a bipartisan issue. This is a concern for human rights in Vietnam, and the wonderful thing about the Vietnamese diaspora here is that you're such a presence in American life. I live in Northern Virginia, and we enjoy going to the Eden Center there. Good eating at the Eden Center, among other things. And there are so many, I think, Vietnamese who are present in America and have really contributed to the fabric of America. What you should do is, petition your Congress. Talk to your congressman. Use that influence, and don't And you are. I mean, the groups have been great. You have been very good about approaching congressional offices. But one thing I would say is, be prepared to counter that, I think, misperception that Vietnam can be an ally against China, and as specific as you can get, I think that would help.
I think you have it on the nail there, where both Vietnam and China are a communist country, and they see each other as a partnership. If not, Vietnam is subservient to China and not can't really counter China. Well, thank you, Mr. Tazi, and thank you, Mr. Phan, for your insights. And we probably need to end it here, and we hope to see you in the near future. So I want to just a couple of thoughts here. To have a good faith bilateral relationship with a totalitarian regime like Vietnam, we must support religious freedom, human rights, civil societies, and sanctions like the Global Magnitsky Act. We hope that today's discussion will propel you to write to your senators asking them to adopt the Human Rights Act and pass it into law. Thank you for the lively discussion. I would now give the floor back to the moderators.
Thank you, Ms. Linh Nguyen, and our panelists for the lively and in-depth discussion. We are more informed on the importance of this work, and we will put our efforts in collaborating to help push the legislation to the finish line. Lastly, we would like to invite Mr. Wook Phan, Secretary General, BYO National Leadership Council, to give the closing statement remark. Please welcome Mr. Phan.
Thanks, Ms. Phan. Hello, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited to say that we have a successful conference on the Vietnam Human Rights Act, HR 3001, today. Thank you for your time and participation. Your presence so that we all share the same values of human rights, and we have the same concerns about the Vietnamese Communist government's suppressions of human rights and religious freedom. You encourage us to continue advancing human rights for Vietnamese people in Vietnam. This is a long, challenging, and important journey. We have a long way to go. The briefing today is just a start. The U.S. must support the 4 pillars articulated in the H.R. 2001 Vietnam Human Rights Act. They are religious freedom, human rights, civil society, and sanctions like the Global Magnitsky Act. We respectfully urge our honorable senator to introduce the Vietnam Human Rights Act in the Senate, and that both houses to pass the Vietnam Human Rights Act into law. President Franklin Roosevelt once said, "Freedom means the supremacy of human rights everywhere." Our support goes to those who struggle to gain those rights or keep them. Our strength is our unity of purpose. To that high concept, there can be no end save victory. In that unity of purpose, we ask that you contact your representatives and senators and ask them to support the Vietnam Human Rights Act, H.R. 2001. Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you, Mr. Phan. Thank you. This concludes our congressional briefing on human rights in Vietnam. Thank you to our special guest testimonial and congressional remark today. Panelists, thank you for your insight, and we hope to work with you too. Thank you to our attendees for being patient today with the technology. I think we did the best that we could. We encourage you to take action, audience, by visiting our website at yaohoipgvntn.org website for updates. Finally, we ask each and every one of you to contact your congressional representative and senator and encourage them to enroll as a co-sponsor of this legislation and help push this to the finish line. We need each and every one of you as part of this important legislation. Please feel free to contact any of us for more information, and thank you. Have a great day. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for staying with us this long.